season 3, fifth and final conversation with Mandell is a wrap for me, but you get to dive in. And today I'm on a rant about community garden and kind of a grown-up dumpstering scheme that I'm a part of, where the grown-up dumpstering means that we actually don't dive into the dumpsters to get food that is about to be wasted. Um, and customer service, and of course, a few books here and there. Um, it's it's a treat to talk to Mandell because he's so thoughtful. And he's so curious. And there are some really good questions in this episode as well. Like, how is your heart today? That's a good one. That's a keeper for me. I'm going to keep that one. So dive in, and I hope that your heart is in a good place so that you will have fun with me and Mandell. Hello, Mandell.
Were you grabbing some lunch?
I just finished lunch, or breakfast lunch. I usually have my first meal around noon.
Mm.
Um,
Intermediate fasting.
yeah, or
Or
at
is it
least
intermittent fasting, is it called?
intermittent fasting, yeah. Or
Yeah, intermittent.
yeah, whatever, where you have a window when you don't eat, and then you have a window where you
Yeah.
eat, which actually you do, right? Most people sleep in the night and don't get up and eat.
Mm-hmm.
So you do have that window anyway. But I've been working in the communal garden that me and some other locals here are starting. So we are just getting ready. So I was there for a couple of hours this morning, working. So now I'm all, all tired. I've been hauling soil from one place 30 meters to some beds that we're starting up, or some boxes that we're gonna be cultivating stuff in. Yeah.
What are you gonna be growing in the garden?
I believe that we will be growing both vegetables to eat and flowers both to eat and to cut, or just for pure beauty. So it's a kaninängens gemensamhetsodling, which means the communal garden of the field of rabbits, because there's plenty of rabbits living in that patch of land. So it's called Hallstorpsparken. It's just next to the church congregational home, over just a couple of blocks away. So the city, the municipality has land outside of there that they have basically not been using for much. And so there's been a suggestion from a local person, Kina and Ala, to set that up as a communal garden. And Malmö stad, the city that I live in, they are quite encouraging and eager. So there's at a rate of 2 more communal gardens every year. So they're pushing for this, and it can be big and it can be small. There's the Stadsmissionen, kind of like city mission is what it means. Where homeless people can go and get food or breakfast or clothes and stuff. They have 2 small like boxes to cultivate stuff just outside of their facility on the sidewalk. So that's also one of these communal garden projects. So it can be that small, or it can be bigger. Um, but it's quite it's interesting because I was just noting to my friends there today that we were there today and we were there last night. Plenty of us were there last night for a couple of hours, just getting stuff in place. And then we were there last Sunday, like cutting down because it's a field of, a meter high or half a meter to a meter high grass and weeds and stuff. So we were cutting that. And then we got some supplies from the city. We have like probably 13 tons of soil. And when you have a pallet, there's a kind of a frame, a pallet frame that you can have on actual pallets. So those frames are perfect for cultivating in. So you put one of those frames and then maybe two or three and then fill it up with soil. So we had gotten 40 of those delivered from the city.
Mm.
And last Sunday, we were working at logging everything to the place, cutting it down, and like planning where to put everything. And then I walked past it Thursday night, and I thought, something doesn't look right. And lo and behold, somebody had driven up and stolen our pallet frames.
Wow.
Yeah. So that was like, what the? But that just got us, fired up. So Friday, 24 hours later, we had almost 20 pallets donated to us from various people in the area. And all of us were there bringing paint as well, so that we have now painted on the pallet so that they're not as easily sold, and or because there's actually a deposit system on these pallet frames as well as on pallets. um, so we were there Friday night, just this will not bring us down.
Mm.
um, so it was quite interesting to see because I filed a report with the police, and other people were like, posting online saying, "Hey, somebody stole all of our pallet frames. Does anybody have any to spare?" Just massive action. So yeah, we're rocking. Um,
I'm kind of
and I was
shocked.
yeah, yeah, yes, it's because it's like, when you growing something like that in such a public space, it's like, I know that there will be people who come and who take the food that we will be growing and stuff, and that's fine, right? I don't appreciate when people destroy just for the sake of destroying, but stealing pallet frames is like, if it was potatoes and you were digging up my potatoes, it's like I can understand that because maybe you're absolutely desperate, right? In Sweden, we do have a social service system, so you shouldn't have to become that desperate. But you know, okay, benefits of the doubt. But 40 pallet frames, nobody is desperate for that. Nobody can come, take that, and not know that this belongs to these people. There's a project going, something is going on, right? It's like, what? Nah, I don't understand that. What would, what would make you drive up a car and log off 40 pallet frames or whatever the technically correct term is? I don't know.
And I wonder, did they just drive by and see it, or did they already know? Like, how are you prepared to do something like that?
Yeah.
Especially since your neighborhood sounded so amazing after hearing your cat story. I'm like, no way someone
Yeah.
would do that.
Yeah. Yeah. So
But
that's one of the things that we have, now people have been responding saying, "Oh, when I go out for a walk with my dogs, I'll keep an extra eye out and, I'll make sure to go around that little plot so that, so I think that the benefit to something like this happening is there is an insurge of goodwill, of action, of people wanting to, step in and make sure that we don't just give in and give up. Um, so we'll see what happens. But it's been, yesterday we were working because we also got uh, like wooden cultivating boxes that were a leftover from a city garden fair in the spring, that they asked if we wanted them. And they're 3 meters long and maybe half a meter wide and half a meter, high. So, but they're massive wood. So they're heavy as shit. I was walking past them on Thursday or Friday, and I was trying to move them. It's like I couldn't move them an inch, you know. But when I got there on Friday night, they were already, and so far it's just women and kids working here. I don't know where the men are. I hope that they will be joining us, but so far it's just women who have been getting engaged and involved. Um, they had already gotten several of those down a slope and onto the plot of land and kind of positioned them. And and one of the ladies, Ida, she had even gotten one down by herself using what would you call those? One of those little things that you can put a box on with wheels so you can
oh, trolley.
a little trolley, yeah, precisely. So
Hmm.
she'd gotten one of these boxes down by herself. And I'm like, Superwoman, this is just incredible. So there's a lot of engagement and commitment going here. Yeah.
And do you often see in community projects like this where the women are dominant and the men are kind of where
I
are
th-
they?
I yeah, I think this is actually okay, so I don't know how to phrase this in a way that because I don't want to blame or shame anybody, but it is a thing. It's the same thing. We have part of the same group of people are involved in the other local project that I'm a part of that's called Svinnbruket, where it's like grown up dumpstering. We don't have to go into the dumpster of the grocery shop here in the neighborhood, but the grocery shop actually they sort out we can't sell these vegetables or fruits because they're a little bit dented or starting to wilt, but they're too good to throw away. They set those aside. They don't throw them in the dumpster, so we have to go after them in the dumpster. They set them aside, and we come every day. Somebody comes and buys it from them, and then we sell it um, locally. And it's partly the same women involved in this community garden project, and the same thing there. It's probably at least 90% women involved.
Mm.
And I remember many years ago, I was reading or watching. I wonder if it's a TED Talk actually. There's probably been plenty, but there's been quite a lot of solar power projects in India. And like back in the days when it was just starting, so maybe 20 years ago, around the turn of the millennia, where they noticed that this man who was the driving force behind it, he noticed that he needed to train people locally in the little villages where there wasn't any electricity, so that there's somebody there who knows how to set up a solar panel and connect it so that you can charge your cell phone, or you can get a little light going inside, or whatever. They started off training the young men, but then the young men took off to town to to get a job, because they had then acquired a skill that they could get more money from. So
Mhm.
they realized that who they needed to train, who was the best people to train, were the grandmothers.
Mm.
The grandmothers of the village. If they trained those, they would make sure that, first of all, they were staying in the little village, and they would make sure that their kids and their grandkids also, that they got solar power panels and they learned how to use them, and that they could also be teaching them how to maintain them and how to set them up, etc. So it is and kind of, I think the same thing is true for what's his face, the Bangladeshian microfinance guy, Yunus. He got the Nobel Peace Prize, I think. Um, which is the same thing, microloans of maybe up to $100. Same um same trend there, that if they were to loan to women, much better chances of the loans being repaid. So
Mm.
it's a much safe. It's like, so there's something, and I don't know. I don't. I don't believe this is human. I don't believe that there's something inherently human in this. I think it's something in the culture that, I don't know. It's skewing somehow. Um, if it's the sense of responsibility, or I don't know. But it's an interesting factor to look at, because you can look at it and you can see it in many, many, many places. A lot of the not-for-profit world organizations and stuff, there's a lot of women involved. Whereas I would say here, if you look at sports teams, it's more common to have a dad as a soccer trainer for 7-year-olds than a mom. It's not it's not as crystal clear, because it's mixed, but that's where I see more men getting engaged. And that's, that I don't have anything against that. It's just, it's an interesting thing. Um, because both the community garden and the grown up dumpstering project, I would say are quite vital and quite crucial, and have a lot of, I mean, there's a lot of potential that this has. It increases resilience, it increases a sense of responsibility for everything that I actually buy from the grocery store. Will I take care of it? Because I have now seen the insane amount of stuff that gets thrown away that is absolutely edible. So it's kind of in line with the sense of the day, I think. Um, but yeah, I don't know. What do you hear in what I'm saying?
Yeah, I was just going to ask, is it that men are just either, are they the financiers for a lot of projects where it's like, oh, we'll pay or we'll contribute financially, but we're not really interested in that. We'll let the women do that, and we'll go do what we're interested in, whether it's soccer or whatever it is else in the neighborhood.
I don't see that here in these But that might be because uh these really aren't financed projects, let's put it that way. We're just doing it anyway. Um so I don't
For
know.
the
But I mean you also see a lot of companies, and it's still mostly, a majority of all companies are run by men, but most kind of, male businesses, whether it be ventilation service or a building service or, you know, door manufacturer or car salesman or whatever, they do donate to the city soccer team and the city hockey team. It's like, so I think there's something to what you're saying. Um, but like, we can do better, can't we?
to get more people involved. I'm curious with the grown up dumpster program. Why don't the supermarkets just sell it directly to people? Is it a space thing that they sell it to an individual and then the individual sells it to more individuals?
So I I think it varies between supermarkets. So some supermarkets in Sweden are starting to do that. They do pick out and make little boxes so that you can buy a bag of, we won't be selling these, but you can have them for, you know, $5 or $10 a bag full. I know some stores don't want to do that because they are afraid that it will scare off their customers, if they see half bad stuff being sold, that they might go, "Ooh, that looks nasty. I'm going to go shop somewhere else." Which I don't I I'm not sure that I believe that that is what would happen, but I've heard it. Um, Plus, it's also, it does take resources. So, of course, the easiest thing for a shop to do is just to sort out what's bad or ish, bad-ish, and just throw it. That's the quickest, easiest. So, I think there's a resource, a monetary resource concern there as well. Um, But I mean, we are talking in December, this project here has been going for 2 years.
Mm.
And we started off with one local store, Coop Bulltofta. And we now have Coop Höja, Coop Oxie, Coop Kirseberg as well. And I know that one of my friends, Anna, is also trying to set it up in a town 50 kilometers away or something. So and we are encouraging people to, set up the same thing in your area. And I mean, we've saved tons of food. I would say every day we probably save somewhere between 10 and 50 kilos
Hmm.
every day, possibly more. But if you take all of those, at least that's what we do every day. That racks up quite quickly. And that's just an estimate from my point of view. But it's scary. um and you have a plastic net full of lemons or oranges where one is starting to go bad. They just toss it, right? Even though there's 4 oranges or lemons that are good, there's one bad, you toss it. The shop don't have time to. And so all of the food waste is here is going it gets burnt, so it won't be composted because there's so much plastic packaging involved. So it would take too much time again.
Hmm.
Depends on what you actually value, but it takes too much time. So it would all, I mean, we are saving tons and tons of food that is perfectly edible that would otherwise have been burnt for heat or energy.
Yeah.
It's like
And
crazy, crazy.
I actually think the opposite will happen if you go into a store and you see a supermarket that says, "All right, here's the fruit or vegetables that have little bruises, and we'll mark it down for great prices. And then here's the immaculate, perfect fruit and vegetables, and we'll have it for this price." I think as a shopper, I'll be like, "Oh wow, they actually have the time to go through." And then if I'm the type of person that wants the best of the best, then I go over here, and it's like a status symbol that I get my vegetables from this side. So it might actually be beneficial to a supermarket
Mm,
to
mm,
showcase it that they put in the effort to distinguish the fruit. But either way, I think it's good that it's not going to waste, and it might actually
yeah.
build more of a community the way that you guys are doing it now, where one person. How does the person know? Does anyone go and buy it, or whoever's there first, or what
No,
happens?
so we are signed up as hosts if you want to go and buy it, and there's a little routine how you do it and when you can do
Mm,
it and where you go to the shop and what's the drill.
mm.
And then we have a Facebook group where we post that today I was the host and I bought fruit and vegetable for 300 crowns. So you can come and pick, and I put it outside, at least when it's not too cold, so that people can come and pick and fill a brown paper bag, pay whatever you think it's worth or stuff like that. Um, and it's fantastic. And this is kind of the third of a th- the third round of me getting to know more people in the neighborhood. The community garden is the latest one. This Svinbruket is the second one. But the first time I actually started to get to know people in kind of besides next door neighbors was in 2016 when I started to do Pokemon Go. Um, or maybe in 2017 when Pokemon Go set up those gyms where you had to have more people to be able to take down the boss at the gym. And so that was a start of local local groups of people like finding each other and setting up little messenger threads of Pokemon Go Husia, so that you could do that, which was great because it got me starting to talk to people. So I've gotten to know lots more people in the neighborhood, and I'm not a regular host. We have a host schedule so that we make sure that there's a name for every day for these shops, and I'm not a regular host. There are some people who like I'll pick up every Saturday or every other Saturday or something, but that doesn't work in my world. But so I pick up when there's a need and I can do it, or if somebody needs to swap a date or stuff like that. But it's it's great fun also to, you go to the shop, you bring it home, organize it and set it up and post about it, and then people come and buy, and I usually take the time to talk to them. So it's it does foster that sense of community, which I think is to many extents, I think, lacking in a lot of our lives, if I generalize.
I would definitely agree. I think your community is actually one of the reasons I want to go to Sweden, because I mean, ever since the cat story, is just like, this is the most incredible community, and this just adds to it. Um, both community garden, which I've seen in some neighborhoods. My neighborhood doesn't have one, but I've seen that. And then the adult compost dumpster project. I've never seen that. I've seen supermarkets just sell it to people, but never a community person buying it. I'm curious: does a person lose money, make money, or that isn't even a thing? Like,
So
oh, who cares?
it's because it for some people it's a thing because they think that we're making money, and it's like I would say that most hosts kind of break even if you look at it
Mm-hmm.
money wise, but then you spend, it takes an hour to go there and bring it home, and I have to borrow a car because I don't have a car, and you sort it out, and you have to throw away what's rotten and set it up and stay home. So time wise, it's not something that you make money from. Um, but we have there's a there's a reason why we want to buy it from the shops and why we want to sell it on to others, because that's a way of showing that there's still value to these goods, even though they were supposed to be thrown away. They
Mm-hmm.
aren't worthless. There is value left in them. So there's a point to that. But then there's some people who think that we shouldn't uh, break even, or it should go to people who don't have any money at all, but it's like, set it up, organize. It's like nobody's stopping you from organizing something, whatever it is that you want to do, whatever drives you. um but it's I think most everybody who does it, I think, do it from environmental concern view. We are people who care about the environment. Care, it's like it's a waste of resource to throw. I mean, the amount of bananas that we've saved, it's it's just incredible. And it's like, bananas do not grow in Sweden. They
Mm.
grow on the other side of the world. Somebody's been lugging these bananas and they've been transported here, and then throw them away because you could get a banana carton or two, several times a week because they've been sorted out. It's like, that would just have been thrown away. It's like, it hurts my body to consider it. Um, so it's and and it's also interesting because I think back in the days in Sweden, people who worked in shops probably were allowed to take, what was supposed to be thrown away home. And this is me guessing. I don't know this, but I think so, that companies employees at companies aren't allowed to do that anymore because then they need to be taxed for the privilege. Förmånsbeskattad. So it's the same thing. If your company provides you with a car or a phone or a parking space or whatever, you would need to be taxed for it, for the privilege of that. You don't have to pay for the phone, but we will tax you for you being allowed to have a phone, kind of. So I think shop people who worked in the shops could bring home part of this waste before, and they're not allowed to anymore. So some of them can also, I think, feel, why are we allowed to come and pick it up and they're not allowed to come pick it up? So that's also part of I think part of the mix is this communication, education, learning about who gets to do what and why, and what makes sense in the system and what doesn't make sense in a system. Because I mean, if you work in a grocery shop and you didn't have to buy any food because you could just pick and choose between of everything that was thrown away. Yeah, I can imagine that people who work in a car repair shop would think that that's cheating. They don't have to pay for any groceries. They should have a much lower salary. It's like, but then we're starting to I don't know. It brings in a it brings in a weird perspective where we lose sight of why are we actually here? What's the point? What's the purpose? What's my role? Um, when we start to yeah.
And also, I think the other thing, I don't know if this happens in Sweden, but a dishonesty can start to creep in because if I'm an employee, now everything becomes, oh, this is bad. Let me, so I
Yeah.
can take it home for free. So that also happens. But I do like the community aspect of how your community does it. I was just thinking, like, do you guys ever do like, oh, let's do a cooking night or cooking event where the host who buys it invites everyone over somewhere, or and all of you cook meals from it together and stuff like that.
Yeah, we haven't done that yet. Not
Mm.
organized in that way. But that's definitely an idea. And we actually had the first like host annual meeting. The grown up dumpstering group Svinbruk. It's not a formal organization. It's just people banded together. We haven't incorporated it into an actual organization. So we don't have any need to have an annual meeting, but we still wanted to do that. So we had that a month ago. And of course, we had svinn. We had waste to eat, and somebody had fetched nectarines and had made a lovely dessert from that, and so we did serve stuff from the to be wasted food that we'd salvaged. Um,
To be wasted. I like that name.
to be wasted, yeah. And there's a company in Sweden also, a fairly young company, but by now it's probably, I don't know, 10 years or something, called Rescued Fruit. I don't know, but they work they set up deals with, like, I think bigger shops or the wholesalers, so that they will call and say, "Hey, we have a container full of bananas that we can't use because or the apples have gone bad, or come pick them up." And they do ginger shots and fruit juices of various kinds from that. So they specifically target this rescued um, fruit and vegetable to be wasted uh, stuff as well. And still, I mean, and it's interesting. This is turning into me ranting about this. It sounds as if I know everything. I don't. I really don't know a lot about this, but I'm interested in it. And one of the things is that in Sweden, the the data available show that people, personal homes, that's where the most food waste is amassed. But that's because the shop that we save this to be wasted food from, they actually don't report that waste. So all of
Mm.
the grocery stores are kind of missing, at least partly, from this national data gathering that is done. So I'm going, there's no way that personal homes are responsible for a majority of the food waste. Personal homes are responsible for part of the food waste, absolutely. But the amounts that I've seen now in this past almost 2 years just tell me that, oh no, there's a major gap
Mhm.
in the data collection. You are not seeing the full picture if you just continue to blame or point the finger at privates or at individuals, because it's like, that's not true. Not even close. There is so much food waste. There is so much food waste. You cannot believe it.
Mhm. It reminded me of there's a book, I think it's called Small Giants, and one of the companies there is a very successful deli out of Detroit. No, not out of Detroit, out of Michigan. And they have this program that the owners started where at the end of the night, they go to all the restaurants and food places in the community and they pick up all the food that they would throw away, whatever restaurants overcooking or whatever it
Yeah,
is,
yeah,
and then they donate it to like homeless shelters and people that are really in need. And such a great idea to kind of prevent that waste because, like you said, food waste, not just fruits and vegetables, but cooked food. I remember when I was in high school, a friend of mine worked at KFC, and she would tell us, come up around closing, and if you buy food, I'll just
yeah.
stuff your
Pile it
bag for you.
on. Yeah.
Yeah, because other than that, it's going in the trash. And I would always say, like, well, why don't you just give it to the homeless? Say, oh, we can't because they get sick, they could sue, and all those kind of things.
Yeah.
And I'm just like,
Yeah.
so you rather throw it in the trash and leave
Yeah.
them hungry.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's an amazing thing that you're doing and what your community is doing. I love it.
Yeah. But I mean, it's interesting because that is part of the thing is this fear, you know. KFC would rather throw away the food than donate it to the homeless for fear of being sued if somebody got a
Mhm.
stomach bug, which just makes you go, so again, somewhere we've lost sight of why are we here?
Mhm.
How are we to be together? Do we build on trust or distrust?
Mhm.
It's like, do I trust my fellow neighbors or do I distrust you?
Yeah, because I mean, it's easier said than done. But I almost feel like if I was the owner of a restaurant, I would take the risk. Like, you know what? I'm gonna feed the homeless with whatever food left over or not left over. And if one of them got sick and decided that they were gonna sue me, okay,
Yeah.
I would hope that the odds would be in my favor. Won't be 20 and 30. But if one person if I feed 5,000 people and one of them sue me, like, all right,
Yeah. Yeah.
I'll take it. you
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
but it's just like you said, we kind of lose the fact of because obviously KFC is not in the business of feeding homeless people or feeding everyone. They have their own who they want to feed, and it'd probably be better if a restaurant, not just KFC, but any restaurant was like, we want food to be something accessible to all,
Yeah.
and this is one of the ways we can do it. So,
And I remember many years ago, probably 25 years ago, um, a local ICA in Lund, not that far away from here, they had a very, sharp owner because he said, hey, I'm gonna hire a chef and we're gonna start to do the rounds on a daily basis in the store and see what is close to expiry date. and then we're gonna cook lunch and we're gonna sell lunch packs for people
Mm,
from what
mm,
is in the store. And that was
mhm,
very successful. And I think they're still doing it. And I know that more stores have started to do that as well, because that would be, you know, the little cube that we're doing this with. What if they were dealing with their own to be wasted food that way? Okay, what will it be today? And so it's like, it's not for a lack of ideas. There's so many ideas. There's so many ways to make sure that these resources are not wasted or destroyed, because they're not honored. The concept of the holy harvest or sacred harvest from Robin Wall Kimmerer's Braiding Sweetgrass come to mind again, where it's like everything is, it's like it comes from somewhere.
mhm,
There has gone, there is vitamins and minerals and sunshine and water, and all of this goes into making everything. And then you add on human labor or animal labor, or it's like there's living creatures are working to make stuff that we eat that will provide us with sustenance and nourishment. That is sacred. That is something to honor, not to just, no, there's a little dent in the apple, so I'll throw it away. It's like, oh,
mhm,
hey, stop, cut that away and put that little piece in the compost so it goes back, right?
mhm.
Mm.
Yeah, the supermarket that checks for what's expiring and then makes the meals. That's brilliant idea for multiple reasons. One of them is that customers would wait. You made this from that, because
Yeah.
sometimes they're shocked that you could make something from certain ingredients, and then it makes them want to buy those ingredients next time and try to make it. So that's one of the reasons. And you actually made me think of there's an Italian brand in Italy called Bruno Cucinelli, and he has every day his entire staff has lunch together.
Oh,
And I was thinking, even something like that supermarket say, all right, what's about to expire, what's bruised, we'll make it and we'll have lunch together every day
yeah,
as a staff from
yeah,
from that food. So, like you said, there's no shortage of ideas. It's just a matter of what do you value? The time of who cares? We'll just throw this away, versus
yeah,
no, this is important and we could actually do something from it.
yeah. Have you seen the news in the this week about Patagonia,
I did.
outdoors clothing company?
Yep. I
um Can you explain it to, if in case there's a listener who don't know it?
Yeah, definitely. So Patagonia, in the best way I could explain it, they gave their company away. Um, I think the owner actually said it as the Earth is now our only shareholder.
Yeah.
So like that's who they care about. It's the Earth. So they gave their company to the Earth, and so he and I always mess up his name, Yvonne.
Yeah.
Uh, he and his children are no longer the owners of the company. But there's so many amazing stories within the story, and one of them is I think one of the lawyers or the financiers that was working the deal said that with this deal they actually get no tax break. Like they're actually
Nope.
paying
Yes.
to do this
Yes.
deal,
Yeah. They're
and it
paying
was so.
$17 million each
Hmm.
or something to sell their
Yeah.
stock or to donate the stock
Hmm.
to these two two organizations or foundations that I've set up somehow to do this, because it's a this has never been done type of
Mm-hmm.
structure, which again
Exactly.
is such a proof that it's not for lack of ideas, right?
Mm-hmm.
And if you do
Mm-hmm.
want to make something happen, well, apparently you can. Right?
Exactly.
It's like it is possible to make a shift. And I was I actually got so inspired that I ordered one of his books. I fetched it at the library yesterday. I haven't started to read it yet, but I've always been a little bit intrigued in the company because I've heard a lot about it. Whoops. Yes, that one. And it is called, so that people can hear it as well. It's called
Let my people go surfing.
Precisely. That was the one I picked up from the library. So I love that. We're so synchronized, you and me. But
It's a great book.
you've read it?
Yeah, I've read it.
Cool.
It's an
Yeah,
amazing
I
book.
look forward to it.
When I read it, I already knew that, all right, this guy is super different.
Yeah.
Like the things he
Yeah.
cares about. Even in the New York
Yeah.
Times article, he said when he became a billionaire, it upset him. Like,
Precisely. It's like, oh shit, I don't want to. How can we make this into a small company again?
exactly.
Um,
Like I don't want to be a
and
billionaire.
no, precisely. And somebody was saying, oh, that's just a load of crock. They're not, doing stuff for the environment, et cetera, et cetera. But it's like, I don't, me and Matthew and Emma of last season, we were talking about this, I think on the pod, but we'd be talking about it otherwise or in other contexts too, that it's not that humanity shouldn't make an impact on Earth because every living thing makes an impact. Everything. Elephants make an impact when they're walking. It's like they do tear down a tree or, it's like we are making. So it's not the fact that humans are making an impact or an imprint. That's the problem. The problem is maybe we're making an impact that is actually damaging on a larger scale so that we're making an unnecessary impact in a way or even a damaging impact, right? So I read someone said that, I don't know, X years ago they were also selling um, gear that you could use to rock climb. But they found out that those, when you hammer in those nails in the rocks, it actually destroys the rock. So they retracted that. They said, okay, we won't be selling that anymore. So it's not that they don't want to make an impact, but the impact they want to make is one that someone deem to be in service of rather than not serving the greater good or the environment or Earth or humanity or whatever you want to put there. And it's like it makes me it is inspiring to see that there's people who, like you say, have such strong beliefs that yes, he's created this huge company, but it does make you want to go, that's interesting. Yeah, they're making an impact, but is that impact, mostly for the better or mostly for the worst? I think Patagonia is probably one of few companies who could say that probably mostly for the better. I think
Yeah.
a lot of companies cannot say that.
Mm-mm. Yeah, they were talking. I was watching on CNBC. They were saying, "Well, I wonder if this is going to be like a trend now. Like who's going to be the next person to step up?" Because I remember when I first heard about the Given Pledge, which is Bill
Mm-hmm.
Gates and Belinda, their foundation, and it was like wealthy people signing up. They're going to leave all their wealth or the majority of wealth to this pledge, and I thought great idea. And then as time went on, I was like, wait a minute, why are they waiting until they die to
It's
to
like,
to give these donations. Like, why not do it now? And then recently, Bill Gates actually kind of retracted his commitment and said his goal is to die uh, poor or broke or with no money. Like he's starting now to just get rid of his money.
Die
And I
with
thought,
Zero, which is another
yeah.
book, actually.
Oh, really? I didn't know
Yeah,
that. Oh,
yeah,
I have
Die
to.
with Zero. Yeah.
Okay, yeah. And so I was like, good. Good for Bill Gates. I was glad he did that. There have been other people that have done that. Um, Actually, I think it was a billionaire in Switzerland, somewhere where he was a billionaire and his goal was to give it all away. And I think he stopped at like just enough to live a modest life. And I thought that was great. And according to this New York Times article, Yvonne Patagonia's CEO or founder, he lives a modest life. He says like he has a modest home and he drives a beat up Subaru and raggedy clothes,
Mhm.
and he has this great big company that they do 100 million in profit every year, which is now going to be given away to climate change. So, like you
Yeah.
said, I don't know if there's a lot of companies that can say this, but maybe it'll start a trend where others will say,
Mm.
"Wow, we thought we were doing something by donating and getting tax breaks. So this guy he's in a whole nother league at this point."
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And it makes me wonder about, this entire hoarding mentality of ours, where how much money do you need? How much profit do you need? How much continuous growth is required or desired? And for what? For why? What's the purpose? Okay, I have $1 million. I need two. Okay, I have $2 million. I need four. I have $4 million. I need eight. It's like,
Hmm.
when do you have enough?
Hmm.
And I think money, the focus on money, the focus on hoarding money, because that is what it is of sorts, again, is part of this distrusting culture
Hmm.
where I have to, if I have my bank accounts filled or whatever it is, I have bars of gold, or I own stock or whatever, because I have to be able to take care of me because nobody
Hmm.
else will. And then if everybody walks around on the earth thinking that, makes for a weird society.
Hmm. Yeah, I think ego and fear all play a role in that as well. Status symbols, and I recently learned about there was a writer who every time he sat down to write, he wrote a check to charity, and it was his way of putting himself in a mind frame that he is a giver and he's a giving person.
Wow.
And so every time he sat down to write, he wrote himself a check. And Ryan Holiday actually said that he might actually adopt that philosophy, to just constantly be giving. And because, like you said, how much do you really want or do you really need, especially when it comes to are you helping anybody with it? And so one of the interesting parts of the Patagonia story was he said his first thought was to just give it to his children. Until the children said they didn't want the company. And I thought, interesting. I would love to know from them why they didn't want the company. Are they just totally interested in something else, or they're like, no, this is actually the best. This is the best route to go. The way we're going to do it. So usually a company like that, like the children, are like, yeah, we'll gladly take the we'll gladly take the company. But he said his children were not interested in running Patagonia. I think they'll remain on the board, but no, that's about it. So it's a fascinating story. Actually, when I first read it, I shared it with all the coaches for Akimbo for this session. And then the next day, Seth blogged about it, and I was like, "Oh, cool."
Yeah. Yeah. He rarely blogs about like news about
Hmm.
current events. That's very rare.
Hmm. So that
Um,
was definitely something that
yeah,
probably jumped out at him, like, oh wow, this guy is
yeah,
doing something.
different.
Because everyone that I know that personally knows Seth has said that he's one of the most generous humans in the world. Like, and I mean, you don't actually have to personally know him because he talks about acumen all the time and his work he's done with acumen and traveling to India and uh, Charity Water. He
Mm,
works with them closely. And one of my favorite Seth charity stories is actually a story he tells in the marketing seminar. Uh, he went to India with acumen, and there was a big community of people that were blind or had like problems with their vision, and so they were able to get all these glasses donated and things. I'm probably screwing up the story of like the exact of where they got the glasses from, but the gist of the story is people had money to buy the glasses, but they weren't buying them. And Seth was like, why aren't they need the glasses? They have the money. We have the glasses. And so he said he went for like a walk for like 2 hours or something, like just to get away. And then he said it dawned on him that people were having too many options
mm,
and it was just freezing them. And so he came back and he said, all right, we're going to take away all the options and we're just going to like, there's just going to be one option for people. You can't see. This can help you see.
yeah,
and
period.
he's like sales went up like 70% just because showing people 100 pair of glasses is like, whoa,
Yeah,
I
yeah.
have to make a decision. But then what added to that story was that he said that the people in India, the money that they had, if you ask them to make a decision about glasses, they're not just thinking about glasses, they're thinking about, well, this might be my next meal. This could, it's way more different than us, where we live at, where we have money to make those, oh, I'll buy food today, I'll buy this today. For them, it's like this or
Or,
that. Yeah,
precisely.
exactly. So it gave him a tough decision. So when he made the decision for them or made it much easier, it was just like the sales skyrocketed. And I thought, wow, how generous for this all time great marketer to go to India and try to figure out how could we help people make decisions so that they can see and live a better life. So that was one of my favorite stories. I love when he tells that
Mm.
story.
And I mean, it does center on this hoarding aspect as well, because there's there's actually not a lot of those either or decisions in my everyday life. It isn't,
Mm-hmm.
it isn't, can I buy this piece of food, or I have to buy clothes for my kids.
Mm-hmm.
It's like it isn't that. It isn't, do I pay the electricity bill or do I pay the water bill? It isn't an either or.
Mm-hmm.
It's, I'm going to pay the bills, I'm going to buy clothes for my kids and this piece of
Mm-hmm.
food.
Mm-hmm. The
So
luxury.
yeah, precise. And to know that that is a luxury, to know that it isn't it isn't a given, which also paradoxically means that I don't cherish what I buy. Because I
Mm-hmm.
can buy a new pair of shoes tomorrow. So why should I even, it's like, so it turns into these like warped abundance almost, where it's not beneficial somehow. It, it, it's skewed so that we forget that abundance is sunshine and water and air and
Mm-hmm.
feeding grass. And, it's like, that's abundance. Abundance is earth will provide food, oceans will provide food. That's abundance. Not
Mhm.
not your 100 pairs of sneakers. That's not abundance. That is some, it's like it's something else. Um,
Mhm.
which I
It's like
think,
true abundance.
yeah, precisely, which I think if you live in and this is, I mean, I'm just making it up, but I have a sense that if you live in such a way that you actually have to choose between paying that bill or this bill, or food or clothes, or that somewhere there's a greater appreciation for what I'm actually choosing and a
Mhm.
greater concern. It's like it's a discernment. What will serve short term, long term? What's there to play with? So you're kind of closer to life.
Mhm. Yeah, whenever I think about, situations like that where there's someone that has to decide, should I eat or should I send my child to school or should I pay a bill? Whenever I get in one of these moments where I kind of lose a touch of that or a sense of that, like say for example, and this doesn't happen to me, thankfully, but like you're traveling, go on vacation somewhere. Oh, you're traveling to Italy and your flight gets canceled, and you make the biggest stink in the world. You're cursing and you're upset. Your flight is canceled and you're so upset. And it's like, think about what you're upset about right now. You're upset that your plane ticket to Italy for vacation was canceled. Like, that is a blessing. Like, that
Yeah,
is a luxury.
yeah.
And there are people that are having like real problems. We talk about third world problems and first world problems. Like, the things we make problems are like, that's not a real problem.
No.
It's just that you've made it a problem because you're so accustomed to this world, that you live in. And so whenever I get in those moments where, I'm tempted to make something that is really small, something big, like, oh my gosh, can't believe Amazon didn't deliver my package when it said it would deliver it. It's like, who cares? Like,
Yeah.
that's literally nothing. And so it always brings me back to those people that, are living a much different life than mine. And to appreciate, like you said, the true abundance that we have, which is the earth and the sun and the stars and the night and each other. Like, there's so much value in each other. You could be having a horrible day and you just go hang out with your neighbor or your family relative, and it's like, all right, things are so much better.
Yeah.
And those are things that should be cherished versus, physical things.
So how do you remember when Amazon don't deliver when they're supposed to? How do you remember? How do you remind yourself to look at the bigger picture there?
Yeah, I just honestly have to stop myself sometimes and just, when I'm reading books, and one of the things I love about reading, like I'm reading a book right now. I think I told you this already, Imaginable, and
Mm.
there's a lot of stories about people in third world countries and people that are less privileged, and just reading those stories and coming across those stories, it's like a constant reminder that, like, dude, you live a very good life. You live an incredible life. You have great fortune, Amazon package or whatever it is. It could be even something higher on the serious pole. It could be a problem at work, or, it's like, that's your problem is somebody else's blessing. Like, they would love to have that problem, like, oh, wow, you actually get to travel. You actually get to buy things. You actually, get to work. So it's just reminding myself, and since I get to be exposed to those things, like when I travel to Ghana, for example, I want to go to the village. I just don't want to be in the city of Accra. I want to go to the village where uh, the people are still going to fetch water, because I want to be reminded that this still exists in this world. Whereas, at my job, I walk into the break room sometime and the faucet is just running and no one's around, and I'm just like, who just has a faucet running? Because I was just in Ghana 2 weeks ago, and the lady that did my hair had to walk 2 miles to get water, and so it's like it's just total different world. And so when you expose yourself to those things, it kind of reminds you, like, oh yeah, you have no reason to complain.
Mhm. So what I'm totally with you, and I also don't want to risk shaming someone for getting
Mm-hmm.
upset if, right? Because it's like, yes, it is relative, and the comparison is good, and it can bring you like back down to earth of
Mm-hmm.
sorts. It's like, okay, look at the bigger picture. It can, I think, lead to a sense of gratitude where you realize that,
Mm-hmm.
okay, I am privileged.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but I also don't want to risk for myself falling into the habit of not validating
Mm-hmm.
the truth with bunny ears of what I'm experiencing. My experience is my experience, right?
Mm-hmm.
Of course, it'll be a fucking hassle if you're standing there at the airport and you've rented out your place for 2 weeks on Airbnb and the plane to Italy is canceled. It's like,
Mm-hmm.
it isn't fun, right? It's
Mm-hmm.
like, no, definitely not. So it's like not invalidating the experience that is, but also anchoring that experience of sorts of realizing, of just being aware of the fact that, okay, this is a problem for me, and it is a privileged problem. It is
Mm-hmm.
something that won't destroy my world, etc.
Mm-hmm.
Um, achoo. Hey,
Bless you.
thank you.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that, because one of the things I agree, like you do want to validate your feelings, and especially feelings of others. So in an instance, if I am in an airport and someone in front of me, their flight gets canceled, their trip is all messed up. In my head, I'm not like, oh my gosh, look at this person making a big deal out of something. I'm not. For me, it's how I hold. It's like the standard I hold for myself. Like you better not do that. But actually, in that moment, I'm actually empathizing with that person and saying, like, man, who knows why they needed to get to where they're going? Because I'm not just going to assume, oh, they're going to San Tropez. It's like, who knows why they need to get where they're going? And then I think about inconvenience. Well, no one wants to be inconvenienced, and their job, their family. It could, who knows? They could be going to a funeral for all we know. So I do definitely. I don't like shame anybody. Like, are you kidding me? You're making a big deal out of this. It's like, okay, those are your feelings. I understand. For me personally, what I say to myself is, uh, understand the 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 smallness of the situation, but I do also validate. Like, if I do get upset, it's like, okay, you're upset, or
Yeah.
you're mad, you're going to be inconvenienced. But after a few moments, is like, as you just said, my entire world is not shattered right
Right.
now. And oftentimes when I'm calm like that, or where I'm thinking like that, like, solutions will come to me.
Yep.
I say, oh, I could actually call Delta, cancel this flight and rebook a flight, or I could actually get in a cab, go to the other airport. Like, I begin to get all these ideas. But if I'm like flustered and,
Yeah.
oh my God, this is the worst, I want to speak to a manager. And then I'm just stuck versus finding solutions. So I totally agree with you. You definitely want to validate other people's and yourselves. But for me, it's definitely other people's, because have been in places in my life where it's like I'm so positive and I'm so half glass or whatever the saying is, half glass full.
Half full. Yeah, it's half
Yeah,
full,
half
not
full.
half empty. You're a half full kind
Yeah.
of person. Yeah.
Yeah. But I could be so that a person will tell me something, I'll be like, well, at least you're not this. And it's like, no, 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 no.
Mm,
Like
mm,
don't be that person,
yeah. Yeah.
because that's not good. And so I kind of learned that. I actually kind of learned that from Brene Brown,
Mm,
like really having empathy for people and don't come with the like, oh, I broke my ankle. Well, at least you have an ankle.
yeah.
Like, no,
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
doesn't help anybody
No,
here.
it doesn't.
So yeah, definitely in agreement with you with that one.
And I was reading something the other day about um emotions and how we're like a lot of what I see is how we intellectualize things. We say, "How are you?" And you go, "I'm fine." But you're actually not. It's like, "Am I fine? How's my body right now? What's my state of mind? Is there any aches? Is there any tingling, any bubbles? Is there anything that wants to move?" It's like there's so much more to find out,
Mhm.
both both physically and emotionally, about where I am, how I am. And it's so easy to like just go with the intellectual right response or something, but to actually drop it down, which also for me means that if I come into one of those situations where the plane is canceled, I can't go to Italy, yada, yada, whatever, it's so easy to get stuck in the thoughts of, oh my God, this is a disaster, yada, yada. So that
Mhm.
if I'm if I help myself or am helped to see that, okay, those are my thoughts right now, you know, how are they serving you right now? You don't have to believe them because they are thoughts. They're thoughts about the problem. And I've written a lot about how the problem isn't the problem, it's your thinking about the problem that's the problem,
Mhm.
which again helps me bring it down into my body as well. Because is there an actual problem here? Is something, what's going on a physical level, on an emotional level, on an intellectual level? What's my state? What's the relationship between those? So that's also a way for me to not diss anybody else's experience, but to take it into me, all of me. Um, which yesterday morning, I I wrote a question in my kernel journal, which is a bullet journal, but kernel sounds so much more or so much less violent than bullet journal. So it's a kernel journal. And it's a concept that my creative community has kind of agreed on or honed in on. So I have a kernel journal where I ask myself a question in the morning, and right now I have a set of 6 questions or something. The question I asked yesterday let's just bring it so that I don't lie, was, what's the 3 words I'm embodying right now? So go into my body, feel. What are 3 words that describe my sense in my body right now? And I gave 3 words, which were, let's see what I said: impatience, procrastinating, and kick ass energy, which was just the weirdest mix. of things. But that also helps me see how this is life. Life isn't rational from A to B. It's all in a straight line, you know, logical. It's like, no, I can have impatience and procrastination and kick ass energy in my body at the same time, all of those. I was like, but that doesn't make sense. You can't be procrastinating and have kick ass energy. Yes, yeah, apparently I can.
Hmm.
Because I did yesterday.
Yeah, I like that question, and it reminds me of the previous thought you asked about when someone says how you're doing, and I'm totally guilty of this because I can't ever recall a time when someone asked me how I'm doing and I didn't say good, and you, like literally, and I always kick myself for this. Like, why do I? There have been times my dad was in the hospital, my grandma was in the house. Someone, how you doing? I'm like, good, and it's just like an automatic response, and it's so bad. I remember years ago, um, actually, my mom had passed away, and my aunt was coming into my grandmother's house where I was, and she saw someone on the street, and the person said to my aunt, "Hey, how are you doing?" And my aunt said, "Not good." And the person said, "That's good to hear." Because they didn't even hear that
Here the
she said
not.
not good. Yeah, she said not good, but there's everyone's so used to I'm good, I'm good.
Mhm.
And so I'm guilty of that. Always saying that I'm good. There's a coach with Akimbo Alt MBA, Mark Stewart. I've had the chance to coach with him a few times. One of his favorite questions to ask people is, "How's your heart today?"
Yeah.
So he doesn't say like, "How are you doing?" He says, "How's your heart today?" And every single time, like the first time he presents the question to the cohort, everyone's like, because
Yeah.
it makes you go inside, like how you just mentioned, and say, "How is my heart today?"
Yeah.
And some of the best combos would come up. People would say like, "Oh, my heart is heavy today." "Oh,
Yeah.
why?" "Because this and this happened." And it's
Yeah.
like, "Oh, wow, okay, so you have a heavy heart," or "My heart is joyful today," or "I'm afraid," or whatever it is. So whenever I really want to know how someone's doing, I don't say like, "How are you doing?" I just say, "How's your
Yeah.
heart today?" And the answer is just so much different. So I'm totally with you on um the how I'm doing. What's the words that describing how you're feeling in your body right now, versus just the, "Oh, I'm good."
I for the past probably 2 years, whenever I'm asked how you're doing, I pause and I usually say, I am doing good, because I am doing good. And I bring forth that there's a heavy heart,
Hmm.
or I'm a bit confused because this, that, and the other thing, or there's so much stuff coming up in therapy that it's hard right now. It's like whatever it is. So I have a hard time nowadays to provide that you're supposed to provide answer of I'm good, because it doesn't feel it's not round enough. It doesn't cover it. But I
Hmm.
usually do include it because I've come to that point where it doesn't really matter what's going on. I know that I'm still good. It's like
Hmm.
there is well-being. I am in touch with my well-being regardless of
Hmm.
the circumstances of what's around. So it is good. And I can be stressed about money, or I can be stressed about, somebody stole our pallet frames, or whatever it is, right? But
Hmm.
I'm not so up in it that I don't also
Hmm.
have this link to the wellness of me, the well-being, the being in me that is well. Um,
Hmm.
so I seldom give quick and easy answer to that question nowadays. If
Mhm.
if I'm, if the person who asks is someone that I want to spend a little bit longer with, if it's somebody that
Mhm.
I don't want to spend time with at all, then, I'll give the I'm
Yeah.
good answer and then we can be on our way, right? But
Mhm.
it doesn't feel genuine to me today. It doesn't feel right to just give that answer because there's more to life than that. Because there can be
Mhm.
impatience, procrastinating, and kick ass energy all at once. Does that mean I'm
Mhm.
good? It's like, no, that means that I'm fucking confused. It's like, what am I doing here? Yeah, good question.
Mhm.
Um,
Yeah, and then there's also those people that you ask, what's going on, and every single time you ask, it's like the worst story ever. And it's like, oh Lord, like
yeah,
there's nothing ever going good for this person, or so
yeah,
it seems, or so
yeah,
they haven't recognized yet.
yeah,
So, like you said, it depends on the person as well as the context of the conversation. Like if we're speeding past each other, and I say, hey, how you doing? It
yeah. You're
it
waving at
kind of
me.
accentuate. Yeah, you're not gonna stop. Oh wait, let me actually tell you.
Yeah,
Or even in an email, I've always struggled with this in email, like just jumping into what I want because I kind of type how I talk, and so sometimes I'll email someone. I go, "Hey, how are you doing?" But the person is really not gonna say. At least, let me not say that. There are some people that do say, "Oh, hey, Mandell, I'm doing well. I'm currently blah blah blah." But some people like totally fly over the question
yeah,
and
yeah,
just respond to whatever I ask.
yeah,
So it's
yeah,
like,
yeah,
should you even ask people how they're doing in email? They're not really gonna tell you
yeah.
because some people honestly don't believe you care. They think it's just
A
a thing
phrase.
that we
Yeah,
do. Yeah, it's
yeah,
just a phrase.
yeah,
When actually sometimes you do care. Like, hey,
yeah.
how are you doing? Before I ask you this question, and one way where it often shows up, and it's the funniest thing. Whenever I call somewhere for customer service, I always say like, "Hello, my name is Mandell. How are you doing?" And I pause,
Yeah.
and oftentimes there's a silence on the phone, and the person, it registers to them like, "Oh wait, he asked how am I doing, and he waited." And so they go, "Oh, I'm doing fine. How can I help you?" And I'll go, "Good." And then I'll go on. And then sometimes I've done it like, "Hey, my name is Mandel. How are you doing?" And there'll be silence and they'll go, "How can I help you?" Like they
Yeah,
just totally fly,
yeah,
like,
yeah,
because that's not a normal question. They're so in, when you're in customer service and you're in a call center, everything is like fast, and this person doesn't care about my life. They just need help, whatever. But I always do it, and it's always so funny just to be in the awkward silence. Like, "Hey, how are you doing? My name's Mandel. How are you?" And I'll just hold the phone till they tell me
mm.
how they are,
That's
and
cool.
it's always so funny.
I haven't done that. I'm gonna have to play
Hmm.
around with that. I usually when a salesperson calls me or they want to sell this subscription or can I sign
Hmm.
up to this thing or whatever it is. Um, most of the time I will they ask, "Do you have 3 minutes?" "Yeah, sure. Go ahead." And they start. And then if I know that, no, you have so gotten the wrong person for this, I'm not
Hmm.
interested. And then I always wish them luck and to make a
Hmm.
great day so that
Hmm.
I send them off. I send them off
Hmm.
with good energy, which provides me with good energy.
Hmm.
So I usually have a nice little conversation that, it never lasts more than 2 minutes if I'm not actually interested. But it's
Hmm.
not one of those, oh, I'm not interested, boink,
Yeah, yeah.
because that sets me into that mode. It's like, I don't
Hmm.
want to be in that mode unless I want to be in that mode. Then I can do that. That's my choice. Discernment again, right? But
Hmm.
but to I haven't kind of started to with that connective piece. I'm gonna play with that one.
Hmm.
Um
Yeah, it's always interesting doing something quote unquote good for someone and they're not expecting it, or something out of the just the traditional hustle and bustle. Like,
Yeah.
because if I call them and I just say I call, they answer, "Hello, this is Verizon. How may I help you?" And I go, "My phone's not working." They're actually used to that. It
Yeah.
won't even be a thing of, "Sir, that's rude." They're
Yeah.
so used to
Yeah.
that it doesn't even matter. But when I say, "Oh, hey," and I call their name, "Hey, such and such, my name is Mandell. How are you doing today?" It's like,
Yeah.
who
Yeah.
who is this
Cool.
person on the other
Cool.
line?
But it's also, I mean, companies can sort of prime for one or the other. My
Mm-hmm.
my brother and his wife were here in Sweden in August. They live in the UK, and there was an issue with
Mm.
my sister-in-law's cell phone. And we spent the better part, because they came from the airport in Copenhagen on the train, and then I jumped on the train in Malmö, and then we took the train up to Ängelholm, where my mom picked us up. So it's an hour
Mm-hmm.
by train. And they had spent, you know, 20 minutes trying to find a phone number for customer service to be able to figure this thing out, because they knew that they had to figure it out when they were abroad, because when her phone was local in the UK, nothing looked awry. So my brother failed to find the phone number, and we were Googling like crazy, trying to find some way to connect to them, because we found there was, they had gotten dial this number, but you couldn't dial that number from overseas. It beep beep beep, wrong number. So we were trying, and I was trying, he was trying. I found one number and he tried that. No, that didn't work. And after an hour, I finally found a number somewhere, in some type of chat somewhere, that someone from Virgin Media had answered that here's a number. Maybe this one. Try this one. You try that one. And lo and behold, finally a person. But then we've spent, 3 man-hours trying to find a number. Then you're not,
Mm-hmm.
hello, my name is Mandel. How are you doing? You're not in that state of
Yeah.
mind. You're
Yeah.
fucking assholes. We can't get a hold
Yeah.
of you. It's like,
Yeah.
so companies can really help also
Mm-hmm.
prime what state of mind will your customers be when they do get a hold of you.
Mm-hmm.
Is it easy, and do you actually pick up, or do you hide it
Mm-hmm.
somewhere so deep into the structure that only
Mm-hmm.
a percentage of the people who are actually wanting and needing to get in touch with you will be able to find a way to do that in person? Um, but they did sort it out. We did manage to sort it out, but there was some frustration there, for sure. So again, what's customer service for? Why is it there? Why do you have customer service? Is it service if you can't find a number?
Mm-hmm.
Should you then even have a number? It's like, why did you have all of those other numbers that you couldn't phone? It's like, that's not customer service. That's not good. That's not well thought through. Was it? What was their name? Sapo, the shoe company? Was it them
Yeah.
that totally revolutionized customer service? It's like, it's not how many people can you talk to in an hour. It's how long
Yeah.
can you engage everyone who calls
Mm-hmm.
to really make sure that they're totally wowed.
Mm-hmm.
Which is just,
Think of.
it's such a lovely flip. Um,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Zappos. Yeah, Amazon brought them. The
yeah.
book. I know the author was Tony. I can't remember his
Sue,
last name, but yeah, I can't remember.
HSIEU, Sue, I think. He died.
Yeah, he
Yeah.
died in a fire during COVID, I want to say.
Yeah, a couple of
Um,
years ago. Yeah.
and he wrote a book about happiness, customer happiness, something like that. But it's
Yeah.
definitely a topic I think about often. And the first time I noticed this was years ago. Because I'm actually the type of person that doesn't like nowadays. I'll Google something and try to find a solution. After a while, I'll call the company. But years ago, I noticed that there was no way to call Google, and I was like, and it was so weird to me because I'm just so used to if you have a problem you can't figure it out yourself, you call the company. But there was no number, and I was like, that's interesting. And then as time went on, I started noticing more and more companies like Facebook. You can't call Facebook. You can't call Instagram. Like these companies, you can't call them. And then the ones where you could call them, like you said, they're so buried in the website. And now what I'm starting to know is even worse is when you do find the number, everything is skewed towards you eventually hanging up to use the automated person to text, or I could help you right here. You don't need an agent. Like everything is skewed towards that. Sometimes it works out. Sometimes it doesn't. You need an actual person and not a person that's going to read from a prompt, which is another thing that one of my other pet peeves. Like, listen, don't read from a prompt. You don't know. You don't know. But yeah, those things happen. And I've had heard recently that typically smaller places like a restaurant might not have a phone number or hide it as a part of a status. Like you can't call us to make a reservation. You have to email us or you have to come in or all that. So those things kind of come into play with marketing. But yeah, like you said, what is customer service for? Which actually makes me think a lot of these companies don't even want to do customer service.
Precisely.
Because if you think about it, what it's for, they're like totally, they don't want to engage with you.
No.
And it's like wow. But I've seen debates like that recently. You know, should companies have a number? Should they hide their number? Should they be like us contacting them? Is it taking them away from what they need to do? I don't know. I know Amazon. They want you to use. They have a thing you can text and type to a person, but they also have an option on the site that says, which is actually better than calling them. It says request a call. Like we'll call you, and they call you right away, and it's amazing because you don't have to wait on hold for anybody. So I know that Amazon gets customer service on a level a lot of companies don't. I mean, just from the story of years ago, they said Jeff Bezos used to literally call Amazon himself and just see how long it took for someone to answer. And if it took too long, he would call a meeting. Like, I was on hold for 3 minutes. Like, do you want to do business? Or it's not okay.
Yeah.
So, you know, I would expect Amazon to have the answer on that. And then I remember years ago, I listened to a podcast. I can't remember whose show it was, but it was the president and founder. No, the president of the founding president of Ritz-Carlton. I forget his name right now, but he talked about like obviously customer service and how important it is at the Ritz-Carlton. To little things like the phone can never ring more than 2 times. And his philosophy was like, he's like, after 2 times, you don't want to speak to that person. That's the message you're sending. So it's like, it rings once, it rings twice, you get it. Or I'm thinking, because he's like, now the customer's like, oh, they don't want to speak to me. But he had so many amazing philosophies that they use at the Ritz-Carlton. Another one was, you know, he said that he walked into a bank one day and he walked in and like the teller didn't acknowledge him. And he's like this wealthy. He's like, I have a ton of money in this bank. I didn't get acknowledged. And so he trained his staff that even if you're like servicing a customer, if a new customer works in, you could just wave or you could just smile. Like you could have some expression like welcoming, you know, to them. And that's all a part of customer service. And then one thing that was really extreme that I thought was extreme, I'd never heard of this, but he considers part of customer service as well, is he says in the Ritz-Carlton, their clientele, if something goes wrong, they don't want to hear, oh, let me get my manager.
No.
Like
No.
Ritz-Carlton customers do not want to hear that. So that's not customer service. So he said literally every employee at the Ritz-Carlton had the authority to make a
Yes.
decision. I think he said up to $150,000. Like it was some extreme number.
Insane amount.
So
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
so he's like if the maintenance person came in your room right now and he was like, "Oh, excuse me, my toilet is not working." He doesn't say like, "Oh, let me get my manager." He gets the toilet working however he has to do it, no matter the cost, and he fixes the problem. Like he has the authority and he won't be in trouble. But you go a lot of places like, "Oh, let me get my manager,"
Yeah.
and then you're
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
following them through the store looking for. It's like that's not customer
Again, trust
service.
or distrust. It's the same thing. It's
Mm-hmm.
trust or distrust. Um,
Mm-hmm.
when companies don't provide that authority to people in the front line, they distrust them. They don't trust that they will do
Mm-hmm.
what's good for the company and the customer because that's what's good for
Mm-hmm.
everybody, right? So it is a trust.
Mm-hmm.
I think Southwest Airlines is the same, that everybody who sits in the front desk of Southwest Airlines, people come and say, "Hey, my ticket, this, that, and the other thing." Everybody is authorized to get the changes that needs to be done. You
Mm-hmm.
don't have to call for anybody else. You are
Yeah.
allowed to make the call again. So it's like, and
Exactly.
man, again, the trust that implies, just whoa, that definitely
Mm-hmm.
makes me sit up taller,
Mm-hmm.
because it's like, okay, I'm entrusted to do this. I'm entrusted to make a good call.
Mm-hmm.
Can we help you? Can't we help you? That's up to me. I'll
Yeah.
It's on me, which I
Yeah.
think is great. But it's so interesting, that thing about the acknowledging somebody else when you're in the middle of a conversation with somebody. When I
Mm-hmm.
did leadership training with my colleague Panilla, that was one of the exercises we did. You have one person talking to another person, and then you have three people coming and standing in line to also want to talk to me, right? And I can have, if I'm just looking at you in front of me and I totally ignore them because I want you to feel that you are my only concern right now, you would go, "Hey, she's such a nasty person. She's not even acknowledging these people," right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, or you can kind of go, "Yeah, yeah," and then go back. And then still you're there. But if you say, "I'm busy right now. Is it okay if I just finish this?" Then you would think, "Oh, this is a good person. This is someone who honors the others as well as me."
Mm-hmm.
Or you say, "This will take another 10 minutes. Is that okay with you? Otherwise, I can come find you." Or whatever it is that you
Mm-hmm.
say,
Mm-hmm.
so that you are in that respect, I think it is.
Mm-hmm.
It's an acknowledgement that there are other people around. Um, and if you are in such a conversation that you cannot be disturbed, go find a room, close the door,
Yeah.
right?
Mm-hmm.
That's fine. That's absolutely fine. Then nobody should be disturbing you. But if you're out in the
Mm-hmm.
open where there are other people coming, you do have to acknowledge them and kind of make sure that we're good. Um, so it's
Yeah.
it's super interesting because you can feel when you do that exercise, when you're actually one of the people standing in line, you can so feel the energies coming from everybody. It's painful when, I am so busy trying to focus on you that I ignore everybody else. It's like, oh, the energy that's in that room
Mm-hmm.
right then, not good at all. Which is also one of those reasons why it's so interesting to actually feel, what does my body tell me about this? You know,
Mm-hmm.
what's the signals that I'm getting from my behavior right now? And if I'm getting this weird feeling, what's it like for these other people? So
Mm-hmm.
really coming down into what's my embodied sense right now is really, um I don't think I've, at least for 45 years of my life, I didn't give that thought an iota of importance. And now it's like, yeah, there's a lot of signals that will help me make informed and discerning decisions about the really small things and about the really big things. All of it. Because it's this entire system, it's there. Am I listening or not?
Yeah. That's a good one in terms of customer service as well. Cause like I said, the guy, I wish I remembered his name, but he's like, he stopped doing business there because he didn't feel valued or
Yeah.
like he was being paid attention to. And there's been times I've been in a business and I've stood there and a couple of minutes and no one has greeted me, no one has smiled, no one has done it, and it's like this is not somewhere I want to be.
I'm out of here.
I
Yeah,
just
precisely.
sense it, and so I leave. So yeah, all of that is part of customer service. How do you make people feel, right?
Yeah.
What's
Yeah.
the environment that you're setting? And like you just said, are you too busy to acknowledge people? Because a lot of times when you go into stores and they have bad customer service, what they're really saying oftentimes is that they're too busy. They think they are. There's a story of in Disney World, they have a 10-foot rule or something like that. If you're within 10 feet of somebody, you greet them, you say hello.
Yeah.
And then if someone asks you where something is and it's within 10 feet, you walk them there. I think it's 10 feet or 7 feet. So they have these rules about distance and how you treat people. But, so many times you go into a supermarket, go, hey, where's the peanut butter? And they go, oh, it's over there. It's over there. It's an aisle 23 or something. And you're like, okay, I'll try to look for it. Especially if it's your first time there and you're like, whoa,
confused.
where am I?
Yeah.
Versus, you go to Disney World and the guy says, oh, I'll walk you there. That's a total different experience now. So.
I was just reminded about banks. There was something wrong with bank thing where I needed to call them. So I could call them. Oh yeah, so there was something, they were sending me stuff and I needed a code to be able to do the thing. It's like, okay, I don't have a code. I don't know where that code is if I ever have had it. It's like, I have no clue. So I call them to tell them I don't have a code. I need a code. And of course, call them. They say, tap in your code. And I'm going, yeah, that's my issue. I don't have a code. I can't tap in the code to get to a person because I don't have the code. Cannot. And you go, again, yeah, I get why you want to have that because then you know who I am, etc. But if there are dunces around like me who don't have the code, I can't get a hold of you. So again, customer service, yeah, who's it for? Why is it there? Why do we have it? What's the point of it? What's the purpose? It's worth pondering. And it is worth pondering not just for customer service. It is worth pondering for schools, for hospitals, for police stations, for prisons, for grocery stores, for the banks, for the car salesman, for the sneaker shop. Everybody has value, I think, from really truly pondering who are we for and how are we for them? What is it that we do and how do we do that thing? And are we in service or not? It is worth thinking about more than once, I'd say.
Yeah, and just reminded me that the fella from Ritz Carlton, he often said that everyone's in customer service. Like it's not a customer service department, and something Seth says all the time too, like everyone's in sales,
Yeah.
everyone's in customer service, everyone's in marketing, because
Yeah.
how you treat a person, you're showing how the brand is, how
Yeah.
the story
Yeah.
is. So everyone is a part of how you want to look out in the world.
Yeah.
Whether you're the CEO or whether you're the person on the
Yeah.
front
And
lines.
everybody
So.
works in quality as well.
Mm-hmm.
Coming from, quality management background, the way that I do, where I've been working with quality management in pharma mostly, but also food industry, it's like everybody
Mm-hmm.
is part of the quality of a company, of the product of the company. Even if my job is to be, I'm the one who does invoicing, or I'm the one who cleans the office floor, is like, yeah, all of you,
Mm-hmm.
all of you matter. So that's another one of
Mm-hmm.
those where it's like, oh, it's the quality department over there. No, it is not.
Yeah.
It is not. It is on all of us.
Exactly. Yeah.
So
Mm-hmm.
it's
Yeah.
it's an I think that's it's an interesting thing to ponder. What do I it's like, what do I take on when I'm working at a company? What do I take on? What's the role that I perceive that I have? And what's the responsibility that I perceive that I have? And what's the authority that I perceive that I have? Um, how
Mm-hmm.
aware am I of all of that? Because there's a lot of, I can see a lot of people in various positions that are not, it's like two. Either you have a responsibility but no authority, or you have the authority but you're not taking the responsibility. It's like, it's often those. More seldom I see someone with responsibility and authority that, I do the work. This is mine to do. This is mine. It is
Mm-hmm.
quite often that I see either you see people that they have such a sense of responsibility. They are so diligent, but they have no authority. Their voice doesn't carry. They don't have the ability, or not ability, because everybody has the ability, but the clout to say, hey, stop. Right? It's like, no, who are you
Mm-hmm.
to talk? Or the other way around, you're actually in a manager position
Mm-hmm.
of some sort, but you go, oh no, I can't do that. It's like, what the fuck? Yes, you can, and you not only can, you should. It's your job. Right? That's why you're
Mm-hmm.
there. Really interesting. Oh no, I can't tell them. Wait, what? But you're a frontline manager. It's like, that's your job. No, but I'm not their manager. I don't give a shit. You're a manager. You can say that. Work it
Mm-hmm.
out. It's like,
Yeah.
that's interesting.
Yeah. Yeah. People don't, since they don't like conflict, they kind of, oh, I'm just in charge
Yeah.
of this
Yeah.
department. And
Yeah.
they don't want, like you
Yeah.
said, they don't want that responsibility to make that decision to do
Yeah.
those kind of things. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then there's the other side of that where people get caught up in their titles, and I'm the manager. I don't do that. Or I
Yeah.
remember years ago at Costco, the CEO was talking to some people, and he's like, why do we have titles like on the name badge? It'll say like a title like um, membership manager, and he said like we're all in member service, like we're all
Yeah.
customer service. All of our tags should just say that. We don't need all the other titles and things of that.
Yeah.
So his badge just says his name. Like it doesn't say CEO. It
Yeah.
just says his name. And I could do whatever a customer or a member needs me to do.
Yeah.
And you could too. It doesn't have to, like, oh, I don't work in that department. Like I
Precisely.
have no
Yeah.
clue. I don't work
Precisely.
in that department.
Yeah.
It's like you could figure it out.
Yeah.
And but some people, they get they get caught up in the titles, but they want the title, but they don't want the responsibility, or they want the pay, but they don't want the work that's going to come with it, and all
Yeah.
that kind of stuff. So we could
Yeah.
talk for hours about customer
Yeah.
service and
Yeah. Yeah. No, we probably
titles.
shouldn't. Maybe it's time to wrap. But, this is our fifth and final conversation. But we do have, now we've actually set dates to record the 2 group sessions
Yeah,
that will take place. It's
that
always
should be
so
interesting.
nerve-wracking, will we find a date where people can make it or not? But we did find 2 dates. So, yeah, I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah.
It's always lovely to get together and share.
And
A
meet new
little.
people.
And meet new people, yeah. Lovely
Mhm.
people. You are in a good cohort in this season. You are.
That's good.
Yeah. Well, Mandell, thank you for taking the time to come join me in this season 3.
Absolutely.
It's been a delight.
It has. Every conversation has been fun and different.
Yeah.
We've talked about so many different things, from
Yeah.
books to cats to Sweden, the travels and sneakers and
Yeah. But I don't
customer
think we've had
service.
any one episode without at least a couple of book recommendations. And this one
Oh
is
yeah,
no
yeah.
different.
That's
So books have sure been like the common thread, even though
Oh
we
yeah.
come at it from very different angles each time.
You just reminded me. What was the book? How to Die Broke?
No, Die with Zero.
Die with Zero. I
Die
meant to
with
write that
Zero.
down, and
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
I want to check that
And
out. Yeah.
I'm still reading The Gift by Louise
Mm.
Hyde, is it? So maybe once I've finished it, maybe we'll set up a bonus conversation with you and me on The Gift, because that's what we talked about,
Yeah.
I think, in the first episode that we did. So maybe we'll do that.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Totally for it.
totally for it.
And then, of course, I have to get to Sweden
Yes.
at least next year. I have to make the trip. And every time we talk, I feel like I want to go more, because these conversations, like now I'm like, man, I want to see this community garden and go to these markets and, meet all your cool neighbors and stuff. So
Yeah, I'd love
I'll
to
have to make
you
the
here.
trip.
Yeah, you do. You do. It'll be fun. It'll be so much fun. Yeah, you're welcome. I hope
Thank you
that you
so
will
much.
come.
Yeah, it is definitely in my plans for next year for sure.
Doing Gentle with an Edge is the title of my book. So far, it's my book, the only one. There's another one, Cooking, but it's been on the back burner for quite some time now, honestly. But we'll see. It'll come. It'll come. But in the meantime, Doing Gentle with an Edge is available as an ebook or as an audiobook. And I promise you, the $5 that it costs, it's worth it. More than that, it is worth it. And it is composed of 40-ish, quite short chapters where I'd recommend you to only read a chapter a day or every other day or something, because there's things to ponder in each and every one. So it's not a long book, it's not a hard book, but it is a book that might just get you thinking and hopefully experimenting. So go get your copy of Doing Gentle with an Edge. You can find it on tankespjan.com.